The cloud does not exist, not in the way they told you. Somewhere inside a frozen mountain, buried beneath millions of tons of Arctic rock, sealed behind blast doors engineered to absorb the kinetic fury of a nuclear detonation, sits a room that quietly dismantles everything the modern world has been constructed to believe. No servers, no fiber optic cables, no cooling systems the size of aircraft hangars fighting a constant thermal war against machine heat. Just film. Photographic film, the kind a Victorian-era chemist would recognize without a single explanation. And on that film, locked inside cold metal canisters built to outlast civilizations, sits some of the most consequential knowledge the human race has ever produced. Source code, state secrets, scientific archives, the invisible scaffolding holding the modern world upright. Think about that arithmetic for a moment. The digital age, the age of quantum computing, of artificial intelligence, of satellites mapping every inch of the Earth in real time, has quietly decided that its most critical information is safest on a medium invented before the automobile. That decision was not made by eccentrics. It was not made by doomsday theorists hiding in mountain bunkers, scrawling prophecies onto cave walls. It was made by governments, by corporations worth trillions, by the very institutions that spend billions every year telling you that the cloud is infinite, that your data is permanent, that the digital world is indestructible. They built the vault anyway, which means they know something they have not told you. And the question gnawing at the foundation of everything you think you understand is not what is stored inside that mountain. The question, the one they are desperately hoping you never think to ask, is why the most powerful organizations on Earth are quietly, methodically, preparing for a future where the digital world can no longer be trusted. That answer begins with understanding the illusion they constructed first. They called it the cloud. Elegant, weightless, infinite. A word chosen not to describe technology, but to manufacture comfort. A psychological sedative administered to a civilization being asked to surrender its most valuable asset, its memory. Clouds drift. Clouds are harmless. Clouds materialize naturally, without fragility, without maintenance, without the constant expenditure of human labor and electrical power. The terminology was never accidental, it was orchestrated. The reality behind that word is considerably less poetic. Somewhere in the deserts of Nevada, the plains of Iowa, the industrial corridors of Northern Virginia, vast concrete fortresses consume more electricity than mid-sized cities. Thousands of machines running hot, loud, and relentless. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, the high priests of digital permanence. They built these temples and invited the entire world to deposit its life inside them. And the world accepted, without hesitation, without audit. Banks sealed their ledgers inside digital vaults. Hospitals surrendered patient histories to networked servers. Governments migrated classified archives onto encrypted cloud infrastructure. Scientific institutions entrusted decades of irreplaceable research to systems that did not exist 20 years ago. The assumption embedded in every one of those decisions was silent but absolute, that digital information, once created, endures. It does not. Hard drives begin failing within 3 to 5 years of operation. Solid-state drives, the supposedly superior successor, bleed electrons from their memory cells with every passing season, degrading silently, invisibly, until the data they carry simply dissolves into noise. The cloud itself requires uninterrupted power, perpetual cooling, continuous human maintenance, and the sustained political stability of the nations hosting its infrastructure. Remove any single variable? Watch what happens. But physical decay is no longer the most dangerous threat. Something more insidious has emerged from the dark architecture of the modern age. Artificial intelligence systems can now fabricate data indistinguishable from authentic records. Sophisticated state-level operations penetrate hardened networks and alter information without leaving a trace. In the wars already being quietly fought, and in the wars coming, the target will not be bridges or power stations. The target will be truth itself, the integrity of the information the world depends on to function. The illusion of digital permanence is not just fragile, it is already under assault. And somewhere, buried deep inside a mountain, the people who understand that most clearly have already made their preparations. The question is what exactly they built, and whether its existence tells you something about the future they are not publicly willing to describe.
The mountain does not advertise itself. No corporate signage, no fiber optic cables snaking toward its entrance, no hum of diesel generators feeding a hungry server farm. Just rock, ice, silence. And behind those blast doors, a solution so conceptually radical it sounds like fiction until you sit with the engineering, until you understand that what they built is not a technological advancement, it is a retreat. They took digital data and taught it to exist without electricity. Raw digital information, code, classified archives, the invisible machinery of civilization. All of it is converted into images, microscopic patterns, dense and intricate, encoded onto specialized photographic film with a precision that makes conventional photography look primitive. Each reel holds staggering volumes of information compressed into physical form, tangible, permanent in nature, immune to the vulnerabilities of the world it came from. The film itself is not ordinary, engineered at a molecular level for one singular purpose: survival across centuries. Under stable cold and controlled humidity, the material resists degradation for an estimated 500 to 1,000 years. No power source required, no software update, no network connection to expose it to the invisible battlefield of cyberspace. It cannot be hacked. There is no port to breach, no protocol to exploit, no algorithm to corrupt. Accessing it requires physical presence, human hands, optical reading equipment no more conceptually complex than a microscope. The architects of this system understood something the digital world has spent 30 years refusing to acknowledge. The greatest vulnerabilities of the modern age are not hardware failures or power outages. They are the invisible attack surfaces created by connectivity itself. Every network connection is a potential point of compromise. Every software dependency is a potential vector for manipulation. This archive eliminates those vulnerabilities by stepping outside the digital ecosystem entirely. But the engineering goes further than mere storage. Each reel contains human-readable instructions, visual guides, technical schematics, language translations. A message across time, designed not just for modern retrieval systems, but for whatever intelligence, whatever remnant of civilization might one day need to read it without the luxury of functioning computers. This vault was not designed for next year. It was not designed for the next decade. It was designed for whoever comes after. Which immediately raises the question the architects of this system have never answered publicly. Exactly who is using it, what they have decided is worth preserving, and how dark their projections for the future actually are. One vault was never going to be enough. The logic that built the mountain is contagious. Once you genuinely confront the fragility of digital infrastructure, once you sit with the uncomfortable arithmetic of hard drive lifespans and cyber warfare capabilities and the accelerating sophistication of AI-generated disinformation, the conclusion becomes inescapable. A single facility is not a solution. It is a prototype.
and the world's most powerful institutions have been quietly replicating that prototype across the globe. Governments moved first, then corporations, then the custodians of human culture. The Arctic had already demonstrated the concept with seeds. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, carved into the same frozen archipelago, built on an identical philosophical foundation. The knowledge architects borrowed that reasoning wholesale and applied it to information. If agricultural civilization deserved a backup, so did digital civilization. Software companies began archiving source code, not just proprietary systems, the foundational code underpinning the modern world, open source operating systems, cryptographic protocols securing every financial transaction, every classified communication, every encrypted medical record on the planet. The reasoning was stark. If digital civilization collapsed without these code bases preserved, rebuilding would not take years, it would take generations. Cultural institutions followed: art, literature, languages on the edge of extinction, anthropological records documenting civilizations that left no other trace. The entire accumulated creative and intellectual inheritance of the human species rendered onto film and sealed against the entropy of time. And then the military strategists arrived, because modern warfare has evolved into something the 20th century never anticipated. State-level cyber operations have demonstrated the capacity to penetrate the most hardened digital networks on Earth. A sufficiently sophisticated attack could corrupt financial databases, destabilize power grids, and systematically poison the information ecosystems that governance depends on. In that scenario, the most dangerous weapon is not a missile. It is a corrupted ledger, a falsified record, a manipulated truth. These analog archives represent something the digital world fundamentally cannot provide: an immutable baseline, a version of reality that exists beyond the reach of the network, a truth that cannot be edited. The institutions building these vaults understand that with a clarity they have never extended to the public. What they have never explained is precisely how dark their projections for the future are.
Read between the steel doors. Not the technology, not the engineering marvel of film surviving a millennium inside frozen rock. Read the decision itself, the deliberate, funded, institutionally sanctioned choice to build a physical refuge for human knowledge against the potential collapse of the very digital systems those same institutions constructed, promoted, and asked the entire world to depend upon. That decision is a confession, quiet, unannounced, never framed as alarm, but a confession nonetheless, written in the language of blast doors and photographic film and cold metal canisters engineered to outlast civilization itself. The banks that store your savings in digital ledgers are aware those ledgers are vulnerable. The governments that migrated classified archives onto encrypted networks understand those networks can be breached, corrupted, or destroyed. The technology companies that built the cloud and sold it as permanence have made their own private arrangements for a future where the cloud fails. They built the vault, they funded it, they filled it, and then they said nothing. The public narrative remained unchanged. Trust the system. The redundancies are in place. Your data is safe. The cloud is infinite. The infrastructure is resilient. Meanwhile, in a mountain above the Arctic Circle, reels of film accumulate in cold silence, each one a quiet repudiation of everything the public narrative insists is true. This is the architecture of institutional knowledge at its most naked. The people who build the systems also build the exits. They design the redundancies the public never sees, because the public seeing them would destabilize the very confidence those systems require to function.
A bank run is not triggered by financial collapse. It is triggered by the perception of financial collapse. The vault must remain invisible precisely because its visibility would accelerate the scenario it was built to survive. The silence is not negligence, it is strategy, cold, deliberate, and entirely rational from where they're sitting. But the vault exists regardless of the silence. The film accumulates, the blast doors hold, and somewhere inside that mountain, sealed in metal canisters designed to outlast the civilization that created them, sits the blueprint of everything the modern world was built upon. The digital age, the cloud, the interconnected global infrastructure humming beneath every transaction, every communication, every moment of modern life. All of it printed onto film, locked inside a mountain, preserved not because the institutions trust the future, but because they do not. The most sophisticated technological civilization in human history has built itself a time capsule, quietly, methodically, without asking your permission or extending you the courtesy of an explanation. The only question left, the one that should keep you awake, is who they expect to open it.